Hi, Victor Vogel. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about communication, the impact it has on people, and I'd like to sort of explain why Donald Trump seems to be so effective at getting things to happen, and the fact that that isn't just happening recently, it's been an ongoing issue. And how we got here and why he's so effective at getting things done in the current situation that he's in. And this all began, and I want to associate this with the power of interpersonal communication, because that's how this initially transitioned. We go back to 2016. Donald Trump and the people he was surrounded by and the money that was backing him all were working towards a common goal. That money group wanted less control. They wanted control of the government so that they could reduce the government and basically reduce the regulations within it so that they could not be impacted as much and operate the way they wanted with less restrictions and make a lot more money than they were making, which is just obscene to start with. But anyway, how this transpired, you had Donald Trump enter into the race. And one of the things that he kept doing all through his debates and all through the process of the election of 2016 was focusing on the idea that what everybody else was doing was wrong, and he was the person who could come in and turn it upside down and make it right. Now, you have to understand that there was a feeling in the population, not 100%, maybe as much as 50-50, but maybe even just a little less than 50-50, but enough people out there who were unhappy with the way things were going. We were coming out of a recession and that had been created by the Republican Party and was being slowly and reversed by the Democratic Party. But a lot of people had suffered during that period of time. A lot of people were frustrated, and they were blaming it on the party who had to clean it up, so to speak. So what happened is Trump, well, I would not say Trump. I would say people who were working for Trump, who were smart enough to see that there was a population, a segment of the population out there, a pretty good segment, that was unhappy with the government. And they had the foresight to identify and see this. They went actually out into the population and they talked to people and they understood these feelings. So this, from a communication, and it's actually a psychological theory called reason act theory by, I think it was Martin Fishbane and Isaac Asian, who were the people who originated this thought process, this theory. And that is that to persuade people, you need to get an idea centered around something that they are already predisposed to think is a problem. And so guess what? People weren't happy with the government. So if you sense this and you had the sort of, you weren't locked into being part of that government and understanding the dynamics and the difficulties of running a government, you were outside of that, and as most people are, by the way, they had this thought, this pre-thought, that they were already thinking that the government wasn't handling things right, and they wanted it just changed. They wanted it gutted. They wanted to change the whole thing, change it up so that they weren't suffering as much as they were suffering. They already had this thought in mind. So this is one of the first parts of this reason act theory is I'm already predisposed to think in this process. So if I come in and I notice this, one way to persuade you to vote for me or to believe what I want you to believe is for me to recognize that particular predisposition you have to think that way and discern how I can take what I want to have happen and position it in a way to make you believe that that's what I am going to do for you, which was perfect for Trump. He's the perfect person for them to bring in to do this because he had no idea about government. All he knew about was business, and he had this fake facade of success in business because he wasn't coming out of Trump Tower or Trump World. He was coming out of that TV series that he had. And so consequently, he had that image in their mind of somebody who could, I'll fire you, I can make things right. I'm the guy that, they made him to look like somebody as a single person who could make everything right, who wasn't interested in behaving like the government, which is exactly that predisposition that people had in the country. A large portion of the population had this. So you had people thinking this way, and on top of that, you had that thought process was ingrained in enough people that it was a norm that people were beginning to create. The government is, it's broken, it needs to be fixed, it needs to be gutted and just redone and reworked. And that thought process was beginning to spread and be part of a norm that people were accepting out there in their thought process beliefs, and a lot of people. And so they were already predispositioned to think this way. And so so what Trump comes along is he had to come in and begin to tell these people, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what you have been thinking in this whole crowd that you guys are kind of deciding in common that it's a norm, we need to do this, and you're thinking this way already. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to be that person. I'm the only person that's running who can go in and do that because everybody else is part of it. I'm not. I'm the outlier. And I understand, I hear what you're saying, and I think you're right. I'm going to support that. And if you get behind me, I'm going to go in and gut that government, and I will make it operate so that you people will benefit from this. We're going to change your life. I'm going to change your life. Now, if you heard that, and you had this feeling about this, and you're coming out of this recession, and you've been suffering for 8 years, and things didn't seem right, and you had this pre-thought in your mind, and here's the guy who comes in and tells you he's going to go in and now he could be lying through his teeth. And this is the dilemma, because he's a charismatic person. He's a TV personality. He's a charismatic person that was entertaining those people. They were probably already looking at him saying, yeah, that is the kind of guy I want to come in and shake up the government. So the groups began to back Trump. They have this understanding, this knowledge base, and you have some people who had the capacity to gain this, understand this concept, and thinking they're going to do. So they put him into this position, and he just becomes a bull in a china shop during the election, and people were seeing this, and he was telling them, and they didn't choose to go out and stomp around in these various small communities and small places where people could ask questions like, tell us about your businesses. How good are they? Because then he would have to say, well, I bankrupt 5 casinos and a university sued me, and he'd have to answer those questions. We didn't want a two-way dialogue. They set this up. These rallies were set up on purpose, and they brought people together. They created those crowds, and then he could get up and be that person, that sort of really shining star out there that was going to present it. He told them exactly what they wanted to hear, and that just drew them in at that point. And it drew them in so hard that when they stumbled, the tape came out about, his messing around with women and everything. And, people saw that, but they were already so predispositioned. There was no one else that was running that would approach doing what they needed him to do, what they wanted their candidate to do, to think like them. Because Hillary Clinton was not thinking about destroying the government. She knew that would be the wrong thing to do. But these people had been built up through these rallies and through the media and through the social media and all this kind of stuff, that Hillary was running a standard campaign. She wasn't reaching near the number of people. And when she was out there, she was presenting the way the government, was growing, and it was beginning to get better and better. And we were coming out of things. And that's not what this large groups of people wanted to hear at this point. They still were not at the point of feeling that comfort level, feeling that, oh boy, I'm finally getting financially stable again. They weren't there yet. And so you had another person over here that you were running against that was just pounding these people with what they wanted to hear. And they got excited about this. So they looked past the flaws. They were, if you will, they had blinders on. All they saw was him going in and taking a wrecking ball to the government and rebuilding it in the way they think was going to help them. So all kinds of things happened that, they should have taken notice of and said, well, let's stop here and let's question this. He kept pounding this, and they kept pounding it with the rallies and with the social media, and these were things. And then, of course, with the situation with Hillary, the one thing they found was, those servers and everything. That was something else. He could say, look, see, this is why this is crooked again. So much so that he asked the Russians, and I'm assuming they were on the other side of the picture. That was everything Trump was doing was in their benefit. So all those cards are lined up to kind of really support what the people were pre-thinking they wanted to have happen. They weren't thinking ahead. They couldn't visualize it, what it would look like if it failed. They were so wrapped up in making it right in their pre-thought processes. The reason act theory was just running down the road wild. Nobody was questioning. The people who were questioning it really didn't have much of a strong approach from a communication standpoint to get out there. The messages weren't clear. They didn't have the right channels for delivering the messages. There was just so much that was wrong with the communication process. There was so much going right with the communication process Trump had. The problem is, and this is the power of communication, It's powerful. If you're good at it, you can be really good at it and be evil as hell. And that's what you're going to deliver in the end, is evil. Now, let's take this and move it through. Trump, all through this period of time, didn't deliver anything that these people were saying they wanted, but he kept them. He kept doing the rallies as president. He kept going out and saying, hey, this is going to happen. Just trust me. I need a little more time. Well, they were beginning to falter and be concerned about that. And so they elected Biden. Well, Trump understand it, well, not Trump, but that group that supports Trump, that understands this theory, understands if you're going to manipulate these people and be persuasive with them, you can't let that election be seen as a loss. It has to be stolen. And it has to be continually pushed that way for the next 4 years while they get ready to put Trump back into the office. So one way to do that is to rile up this crowd to the pitch level where they're ready to go fight for that country. That's what happened on January 6th. And then all through that period of time, you keep pushing these people, you keep pushing them and saying, it wasn't me that caused that problem. I was ready to go into the next 4 years and really give you what you wanted. They were still thinking the government needs to be changed. But then, of course, you had the pandemic that came in and disrupted it a little bit too. But that thought process was still going. He was pounding away, continually pounding away at people that they were robbed, that this group of people, he was robbed, and consequently they were robbed because he was thinking the way they were thinking, and he was going to continue to fight for that, and he kept doing that. And the fact that we didn't accelerate his crimes and move to convict them quickly allowed him to continue to build that. And the fact that he was able to put that one judge that unbalanced the court that and put a bunch of other judges in there just heightened the issue. So there was a lot of good political maneuvering, but a lot of this is having to do with sustaining that base through that reason act theory. These people wanted change. They still wanted change. They hadn't gotten the change they wanted. And then they were beginning to think maybe they could, but then Trump and that group, the oligarchs and all the people that they put in place underneath him to build that communication model to continue to hold on to that group and reinforce that group and even grow the group. They began to realize they had to unite the white Christian or the Christian nationalists with the militias because, the militias were anti-government, and so they had to make sure the Christian nationalists felt the government was preventing them from getting what they needed. That united those two groups. And they were all still thinking, we gotta, just gut the government, gut the swamp and put some people in there that will do what we know will help us. And it wasn't ever happening. And so we reached the next one, and the next group of people who they knew they needed to get their arms around another group because it was going to be close. They went after a group of people, young males, that they said there's a problem here, and I'm telling you, if you let them continue on with what they're going, we're not going to get this government completely converted, wrecked and destroyed and rebuilt and the right image that you're looking for. You guys, you are the hope. You are the young fighting group. We're going to put you in there, and you need to fight for us by voting and get out there and get the vote up and going. So they went out after the young males and universities and everywhere. And so Charlie Kirk did this with his whole philosophy. This was always challenging in everything he was presenting. He was an excellent communicator. He was presenting. He chose that debate theory concept, and he kept taking and pushing it in the direction of what that population, now the younger males, but we had these other unified groups all pushing in that same direction. And those were the vast majority of the people that came out and listened to Charlie. And he was good. I mean, he was an excellent, charismatic communicator again. And that group was beginning to build, and that's what brought Trump over the line the last time. So what's the dilemma now? Now the dilemma is Trump's in there. He's been in there 9 months. Everything's going to hell. Nothing is going like these people believed, and now they're losing faith in him. And that's something he can't have. So they're reaching that point at where if the membership begins to question the leader, and we are now the government. Now the only other approach we can control these people with is fear. So consequently, you turn into violence. You put troops in the street. So there's more to this than just trying to get the Democrats and the other people afraid of us. This is also a way of signaling to that group of people that he told them he would make their lives better, that, the only way to make that better is I have to control everything. I have to not only control you, I have to control everybody else. And I can't do that through voting and talking about it. I have to put the military in the streets. I have to use power. So he's now gone from persuasion being that of thinking this reason act theory concept of where I'm going to tell you what you want to hear and come along with me, I'm going to do it, to one of the only way we can get this is through fear and coercion and threat. And that's why the power in the streets are sending a nonverbal signal, which is the most powerful message. Is what people tend to put their meaning of the message behind, and that is, look, I told you I was going to gut the government and we're going to totally change it. There is no better picture for you people to believe that I am doing what I told you I would do than to put soldiers in the streets and to control things through force and coercion, to declare war and to control the military and control the law enforcement and the law system, to control. I have to control everything in order to meet your needs. The dilemma with that is, of course, people are beginning to see that they're not getting any better from that. So now they're beginning to question it, and they're frustrated with it, and we're beginning to see those cracks. But he has kept that population divided through the rhetoric and through what he says. And unfortunately, the Democrats and that other portion of the population of the public have yet to figure out how to connect back with that other group without judging them, without criticizing them, without making them feel awful for what they did in voting Trump into office. And so until we can do that and unite, see, Trump is saying he is there at the behest of the people. The vast majority of the people voted him into office. Not true. If you took the votes that Kamala Harris got and you took all the people who didn't vote for in the election at all, and you took about 8% of the voters, I think it was, that wrote somebody else in. They voted, but they didn't vote for Harris and they didn't vote for Trump. They didn't want either one of them. If you took all of those votes, added them with Harris, what you have is a block of votes that did not vote for Donald Trump. And you know what that percentage of those votes are? 70% of this country's population did not vote for Trump. He got in on an electoral basis. It's one of the dilemmas with supposedly trying to make voting equal by populations dispersion. It doesn't work, in my opinion. But anyway, that's it. 70% of the people did not vote for Donald Trump. He does not have the majority of the population. He does not represent the majority population. He represents that minority, which is a large group, is like 30% of people who really wanted this government gutted, and they got it, but they didn't get what they wanted. They visualize this differently than Trump is doing it. Trump knew that. He didn't care. He was going to service those people who were putting him into office and take care of him. That's what a dictator does. He makes the people believe, he knows what they're feeling, he draws them in, he gets control, and now he has to control through power. So if in any way that power is reduced, that other third is going to begin to open up the doors to talking with the rest of us, and that's going to put a massive amount of pressure. That is exactly what the oligarchs don't want, because there's not enough of them to overcome the population as a whole, so they have to try to continue to work on what they have right now. So it's between now and coming up on the next election. And then even then, if we win both houses, they're going to try to, through power, to retain control. They're not going to give up control. You're going to have to pull it from them. And if you're not seeing that in advance, if you're not thinking about that in advance, then you're not sensing the nonverbal communication, and you don't understand all of the communication that has gotten us where we are to this point. So we missed all of this. We missed all, and the Democrats and the Independents, all that other 70% of the population, we need to rethink how we're communicating and enhance our skill sets to be able to see what's going on, not just what people are saying to us and how they're saying, but be able to associate and understand how it's impacting us and what's going on in the environment. We have to not judge that other group. That other group's important to us, because once that group reunites back with us again, we become a massive power force that the oligarchs can't overcome. In a democracy, they can in a fascist society. If they can get that fascist society installed, then democracy's dead and they can control. But right now they can't do that. And if that other group begins to unite, if the people begin to unite as a whole, and we have to open the door to allow those interactions to happen. We have to learn how to communicate effectively. And we just don't teach people how to do that in high school. And a lot of college people get out of college and never learn what I'm telling you is going on. They had no idea this process. They keep asking, how can people believe Trump does it? This is because he understands the concepts, or whoever was guiding him. I don't think he did, but whoever was guiding them, they had these theories. They had this understanding of how this works, how you can do things in persuasion and be excellent communicators and persuade people to go down an evil path. That is the power. And it's what I've been saying for so long about why we need to change the leadership paradigm. It needs to be built around effective, positive interpersonal communication concepts, and people need to understand that, not just your leaders. It needs to go down through the whole organization in business, but in government also. Look at how can you sit there and look and say, hey, I'm not going to bring Congress together. We're just not going to meet. Half of us are not going to meet. The rest of you can do whatever you want to do. Now, you're a stalemate. If you're saying, oh, well, that's the way the government works, can't do that. You're not thinking about what are we going to do. Maybe we just come together and create the bills and go out and vote them, go in and vote without them. And that's what they're doing. They're saying, hey, we don't, we're supposed to come in here and do our job. We're not going to do it. So we just choose not to. So, and you let them. There's nothing about your communication coming from the Democrats right now that are saying, if you do this, we're going to kick your ass. We're not going to let you do this. You can't do this. And we're going to, whatever it is, we're going to go do something where we pass laws. And if you're not here, you're not here. And since you don't believe that in the rules, then we're going to set our own rules, and we're going to do it. And by God, we're going to go talk to the people about it too. And we don't care if the Supreme Court says we can't do it. I mean, obviously, they're just going to side with you anyway, so we don't care. So when that kind of communication comes back to them, it sets a signal that is different than what they're used to hearing, because they believe that the Democrats just aren't going to violate the rules, because that's the way it's supposed to be done. You're in a different environment, different situation, different calls for a different communication approach. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. It makes a whole lot of sense when you look at something, and you can look this up on Google. Again, I think it's Fishman and Isaac. I think it's AJEC if you look up the last name of Isaac. Those two guys came up with this theory. It's called Reason Act Theory. The whole concept is, I'm going to tell you something that you're already thinking you want to hear. I can sense what you're saying. I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to lie to you, and I'm going to tell you I'm going to do that, and you're going to get committed to me. And then I'm going to go in and create enough havoc that you believe I'm going to make it happen. And so you get even further behind me, and you forgive all the faults that are beginning to be apparent along the way, and I've got you. That's how cults are built, ladies and gentlemen. And it takes a real unique event, something very powerful event, very out of the norm event for cult leaders to be shaken out of their control of people. But it can happen. I know that for a fact. It can happen. But it's extremely difficult to do. But one of the things you can't do is isolate this group of people out there that are now being very negatively impacted by Donald Trump and his gang that are in control. They are being hurt really bad by this now. And we need to not isolate them. We don't need to be going in the streets with microphones trying to embarrass them for entertainment purposes because it's funny. Okay, that's judging. That's what's getting in our way right now. We need to be out there sitting around with them at coffee tables and at coffee shops and at McDonald's and other places, talking about how is this impacting you? Are we really better? If we are, then I'll come over here and join you. But it doesn't seem like you're your life is any better. It seems to be worse, just like mine. So why? Let's get to figure why that's going on. Maybe it's neither one of these groups we want up there, but maybe we want a whole new group like you wanted in the first place. But we want people who are really, truly going to deliver what you were thinking in the first place. What you got was a bunch of oligarchs taking advantage of you. That process, that's the signal. That's the signal we need to create. We can actually communicate that effectively. We can bring everybody together. Then the oligarchs don't have any options on us. I don't care how much money they have. We still have the democracy in place. That still drives the government. The oligarchs only get control if they can put the fascists in place. But you need to understand, all of those people that were following Trump, all those little folks, the people out in all the communities, they're going to suffer just like we're suffering. We do not need to be judging them, ridicule them, making them embarrassed. We need to be able to talk with them. They are the people who can come over here and help. They need to feel that they're not going to be replaced by immigrants, that we can only grow stronger together as a society. The Canadians are now doing this. They listen to their messaging versus what Trump and these group is doing down here, or the Democrats even are doing down here. Listen to the Canadians. That is some of the most unifying speeches. They speak as one. They're beginning to have the same mix we are having, but they are one. They are one, and it is in how their leadership is communicating to the people. And they have a common enemy to fight against. And so what happens is we need to quit being divided and begin to talk to our neighbors, because the common enemy is the oligarchs and Trump, and they are now formulating who they are. Fascist, dictator, control and coercion people. And that's not going to fare well for MAGA followers. It's not going to fare well for everybody else. We can talk to each other about that. Then we can overcome any kind of election threats and get the votes in we need to control both houses, put a stop to all this. But understand, it's still got to change. It's still got to change. It's got to change for the better. So it's just, I thought I would want to try to, I'm looking at this from, if I were trying to get people to see how to correct this problem from a leadership and a communication perspective, we could do this. We can do this. But you better educate yourself about what happened and understand how it happened and understand what you need to do to change, how you as a leader need to communicate, and how we need to communicate with each other out here as a population. And turn off the TV and stop watching these things where we're ridiculing the MAGA group, and as opposed to sitting down with them over coffee. These are our neighbors. These are people we love. It's like I live in Oklahoma, and I can tell you right now, if a tornado went through like it did in Moore, Oklahoma years back and killed some 25 or 40 people and destroyed Moore, Oklahoma and neighborhood unbelievably, there were no red. And same way about the Murrow bombing, there are no red or blue. There are no Christians and non-Christians. There are just people together, pulling out rubble, helping people come out, trying to help people get the help and they need, providing places for people to stay, food and shelter, and all of that comes together. I've seen that happen more times than you can count in this red state. In a red state, folks. I know this can happen. We just need to learn how to make that, open the lines of communication. Communication is powerful. That's all I have to say.